Welcome to Mayday edition of Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. We'll say, let's say Happy Workers' Day to everyone there at home at this time, and of course getting ready to reminiscent over the May Day. Meanwhile, on the headlines for this hour, Rivers Hoopers land in Senegal ahead of the Basketball League. And in tennis, Nadal and Jabeur exit the Madrid Open. Coming in from the world of football, Bayern Munich and Real Madrid could not separate themselves last night. Details of this and many more will come to you here. Just stay with us. After a short break, we'll be right back.
Telling him not to counterpunch.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. To catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe, stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
Every day our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics,
Nobody's ambition is what's the blood.
I have fought very firmly.
natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
Telling him not to counterpunch.
Welcome back. It's Sports Talk here on this May Day here on Atlantic Television Network, and I have with me Kingsley. Kingsley, nice to have you.
Thank you very much for having me, sir. Very happy to be here this morning.
And as usual, we'll start from the local scene here, where ahead of the full council meeting of the Sports Writers Association that gets underway tomorrow in Kano, Minister of Sports Development John Ewan Eno has commended sports journalists in the country, of course under the aegis of Sports Writers Association of Nigeria, for their contributions to sports development in the country. SWAN President Benjamin Isaiah and his team was in the office of the sports minister yesterday, and the minister was so happy with the leadership of the body and saying that he was willing to partner with SWAN for the development of sports in Nigeria.
I think it's a good one. It's a work on developments that John Wanino, of course, has achieved, himself, towards, the Sport Writers Association in order to make sure there is adequate, reportage and fair reportage when it has to do with, sports down here in Nigeria. Of course, without, the Sport Writers Association, sporting information, of course, will not be disseminated, to people to be able to take, sport development as well to another level. So far, so good. I think it's been an impressive ride. It's been an impressive partnership so far. I think after the All-African Games, the Swan National President Benjamin Isaiah, of course, he met with the sport minister. They actually talked to him through on how, to make sure that, sporting activities down here in the country are being reported, of course, in a fair manner. So for me, I think it's a good one, and we look forward to see, of course, a favorable partnership between the sport minister and the Sport Writers Association.
Sports writers are definitely partners in the development of sports in the country, and of course Benjamin Isaiah was full of the opinion and that suggestions, proper suggestions will be made to the sports minister aimed at developing sports, here in Nigeria. He clearly talked about carrying sports journalists along in the development of sports in the country. I think this is a good development, coming from the heels of some reported faction among Swan, but it looks now that with the visit to the sports minister, all is now laid to rest about the activities of the Boni Young-led faction of Swan.
Yes, I think for me it's now is a welcome development because we hear there was actually a Tozu in the National Swan where, of course, the President Benjamin Isaiah, we hear he was about to be impeached, and all of that. But for what we've seen at this point in time, there is rest now. I think the president will now be able to concentrate and see how we can foster and as well carry, the body, to another height. At this point in time, this is what we need. We don't want, crisis, at this point in time. When it has to do with sports in Nigeria, there have been one crisis or the other, different federation having crisis, and now it's coming to the Sport Writers Association. But it's a good one that we're now seeing, Benjamin Isaiah, of course, taking over the helm of affairs. And, of course, we look forward to see what he'll be able to do. And everyone, of course, is looking up to him to be able to do more than what, of course, the previous president, talking about Honor Sirawo, did at this point in time. So I think under his leadership, we should be able to see, an adequate Swan body that, of course, will stand in at every point in time to disseminate, sporting information in the country. Not only disseminating sporting information.
For actions in their group, of course, we're talking about a group now, the Sahara Conference. The Sahara Conference is populated by former champion, U.S. Monastir of Tunisia. We have AS Douanes, the home side, and Rwanda's champions, APRO, making up in that group with the Kingsmen, that's Rivers Hoopers. Very top conference, I must say. But for you to be a champion, you need to beat the champion. That's exactly what River Hoopers are going to do in Dakar. Ahead of this trip that they've now arrived in Dakar, how prepared did River Hoopers get ready for actions in the Sahara Conference?
For me, I think their preparation has been top-notch. We saw them at the basketball court in Port Harcourt down here, and after then, they went down to Lagos for their final training section. And as well, from there, of course, they are now in Senegal, Dakar, to prepare for this particular one. First of all, we must give kudos, to the River State government for the support. We didn't hear any hitches. There was no issue on ground, at all, when it has to do with them, traveling down to Senegal for this particular one. And I think for me, with this high level of preparation, I think the players will go down there and be able to put up their best, because in a situation whereby the players are not psychologically stable, sometimes it affects them. What are those things, of course, that can make them not to be psychologically wise? River Supers getting this time, being their second time, I think they're well equipped. So we should be expecting something huge, from River Supers. I think for what we're seeing at this point in time, their preparation is better than what Kwara Falcons did the last time when they went to the Basketball African League. So we should be looking forward to see River Supers, challenging the likes of US Monastir, AS Douanes, and APRO.
Talking about levels of preparation ahead of this trip to Dakar, you mentioned about 4 to 5 players that have been injected into the squad, foreign-based players, so to say, players who have had experience in the basketball league and, of course, played in top-flight basketball across Africa and in Europe. What contribution will these players bring to the team, and I remember being at the basketball court in one of the training sessions with you, where Coach Jada talked about weakness of the team, the defense line. Do you see these additional players, making up for weakness in the defense of the of River Supers?
Yes, of course. I think the players are on board, really have what it takes. Perry, of course, is a point guard. He's also one man, of course, who everyone will be looking forward to, of course, to churn out the points for River Supers. Though he does not really have that height. When you talk about the skills, and the agility, of course, you give it up to him as well. You talk about the likes of John Wickens, who has played for Stade Milan as well. He also has what it takes, to churn out the point as well. Talking about John Wickens as well, Kevin Omayo. These are players, that knows what it takes, to be able to interpret, their roles very well, in a particular team. So for me, I think when it has to do with the forward, River Supers, of course, are very good. But sometimes in the defense, they always, slack a little bit, because what happened in the Lewis Eden tournament where we saw them conceding was as a result of, not having a favorable defense. But I think the players on ground now, and with the help of Ogo Daldo, the coach of the side, I think they can be able, of course, to stabilize, the team in the different roles, talking about the defense and as well, up front as well. So for me, I think they're very much prepared. Ogo Daldo actually knows what he wants, and that's why he went, for these players. The players on ground as well will also be instrumental for them. So when you talk about the defense and the forward, I think, they have it enough at this point in time. We'll just pray and hope that, these players will be able to live up to expectation on the courts.
Well, I wish the River Supers, the Kingsmen, as they popularly call, the best of luck, and of course the performances at the Sahara Conference that gets underway under 72 hours from now. River State Government, the main sponsor of the team, through Barrister Christopher Green, doing everything possible, ensuring that River Supers get their best at this year's basketball competition at the African level. The top level is our own NBA, if so to say. And talking about the NBA reminds me that Los Angeles Lakers have crashed out. Do I say crashed out, or have been knocked out of this year's NBA playoff by no other than Denver Nuggets, defending champions?
It's a sad one. It's actually a very sad one, of course, for the Lakers, because everyone expected them, of course, to maybe go far in this particular one. But from what we've seen at this point, actually
108 to 106, and their main man, talking about LeBron James, scored as many as 30 points, but those 30 points didn't make any meaning at the end of the day, with the 2 points gap between them and the defending champions, Denver Nuggets.
He should have shown at this point, earlier. That's the thing, because, getting to this stage at this point, you were beaten in the first game, the second game, the third game, and now the fourth.
4-1.
They are 4-1, but
4-1 at the end of the year.
For what it is, I think the Lakers, despite their run, of course, in the
Western Conference.
In the Western Conference, I don't think they really came up with their A game. Though you would say yes, the Denver Nuggets side, they're very, very fantastic, especially in a team where you have the likes of Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and the rest of them. These are players, that...
Jamal Murray on the night scored as many as 32 points for his team, and that's quite a big one. And he did the magic with just about 3.6 seconds left on the clock. And that was the winning, or I would say the winner for the Western Conference winner and defending champions.
Yeah, for me, I actually expected that performance, of course, from the Denver Nuggets, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and the rest of them. They've been fantastic, right from the regular season. They've been very, very fantastic. And playing against the LA Lakers, for me, I knew it was going to be a very difficult one for the LA Lakers, looking at the form of both teams, at this point in time. But for me, I think it's a very sad end, for the Lakers, who has, in the past 2 seasons now, have not been able, of course, to pull out, from this stage for the competition. So it's actually not a very good one for the man LeBron James. He actually did his best, but I expected all of these points coming to have come earlier on, of course, in the series. But we didn't see that, coming at this point in time. So
they're trying to force a 3-2, but they lost it with just about 3.6 seconds left on the clock. And you talked about the man, LeBron James. No doubt spent more than 20 years in the NBA. He's not able to win the NBA title with Lakers, where he goes next.
The man, of course, is of age, I think 38 years of age now. And from what we've seen at this point in time, everyone, of course, should be expecting LeBron maybe to call it a quit at this point in time. It's been a frustrating time for him at the Lakers. We saw him at the Cavaliers, where he was, of course, able to, win 1 or 2 titles, of course, for them. And then, coming down to the Lakers, he's been a little bit struggle, for the man, to be able, to prove a point, for himself as a very big, NBA player, as it is. But for me, at this point in time, I think you just have to go back and sit down and look at it. The Lakers, are they really a team maybe that can fight for next season? That's the big question. Are they really a team that can fight for next season? I think he has to also weigh this option and see, even though he comes back, can him in seeing how to end his career.
End of the road in ECS NBA for LA Lakers and their star man LeBron James, and we hope that he will make up a decision that will satisfy his numerous fans across the world. He said he's consulting with his family. After consulting with his family, he definitely will progress to the USA camp for the NBA basketball team ahead of the Olympic Games, and I'm sure he will make a decision that will be satisfactory to him. Like he mentioned there, he's nearly 40 years of age, spent more than 20 years in the NBA, and I'm not sure he's a younger player, so he definitely will take a decision that will determine his body. His son is coming to the NBA hopefully next year. Let's see what that...
And he said he wants to play with his son.
The father with his son, so let's see whether that will come to reality. But for now, it is the end of the road for Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James. That's in the Western Conference. But talking about the Western Conference reminds me that Oklahoma City Thunder have thundered their way into the last 8 of this year's NBA competition. Kingsley, New Orleans Pelicans were their victims along the road. It ended 97-89, very close. The Thunders from Oklahoma City are doing just what we've never seen of them in recent time.
Yeah, impressive one, 4-0. In that particular in favor of Oklahoma City Thunder, and they actually came up with a very impressive performance. Of course, you expected the Thunder, to be able to deal with, the New Orleans Pelicans. The Orleans Pelicans, of course, didn't actually have a very good regular season. I think they came in through the playing tournament as well. So they didn't have a very good time, but the Thunder were very fantastic, in the regular season and coming down as well.
They had a very tough fight with the New Orleans Pelicans. It was 44-43, just 1 point gap at halftime in that fixture. This was really, really close at halftime. Just 1 point difference between the two.
That was 1 point difference, and that's to tell you how tight it was. The New Orleans Pelicans, of course, were doing everything to come back, but of course, the Thunder team were very much, fantastic in that particular one. I think for me, we should give it up, to the Thunder team. Despite, the struggle we've seen from the New Orleans Pelicans, they were still able to stand their own. And the likes of Jalen Williams, you talk about the likes of Joe Giddey, Aaron Wiggins. These are players, of course, that came to the party, for the Thunder side. And I will hope, of course, they continue with this impressive performance going forward in the competition.
Talking about impressive performance is what we've seen of the teams in the Eastern Conference, and one of them, very boisterous, is Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics were able to take out Miami Heat. Do I say Miami Heat got maybe just one of the 4 games between them and Boston Celtics. It ended 3-1 now at that Eastern Conference between Boston Celtics and Miami Heat. Kingsley, in the last game, in the 4th game there, it was 102 points to 88 points, 88 for Miami Heat. Miami Heat leaving it too late. Can they survive the 5th game?
I think that's going to be the decider of this particular one. Miami Heat 3-1, as it is in favor of the Boston Celtics. A very tough position at this point in time for the Miami Heat. Miami Heat, of course, they've struggled. They struggle in the regular season. They have to come into the tournament, through the play-in, and then getting down to the playoff, meeting Boston Celtics, looking very, very hard, for them to go through at this point in time, 3-1, and a lot of expectation from the Miami Heat players, especially the likes of Bam Adebayo. You talk about Terry Hero and Nikola Jovic. These are players, of course, that we all expect to live up to expectation for the Miami Heat side. So this Boston Celtics are looking forward to make this one done and dusted. So we're going to be experiencing a very, very cagey encounter in Game 5.
Talking about Game 5, but for Game 4, it really happened for Boston Celtics. He's never scored 38 points before. This was the first time he was scoring as many as 38 points, and of course, it did help his team move very close to qualifying for the quarterfinals or the last 8 of the NBA for this season. Let's look at what happened in the early hours of this morning between New York Knicks and, of course, Philadelphia 76ers. Joe Embiid and his team were able to take this one, making it 3-1, 106 points as compared to 112 scored by Philadelphia 76ers. It looks like New York Knicks took their leg off the pedal. It could have been done and dusted in this in this fourth game.
Yeah, it would have been done and dusted. The game actually went to overtime, and there was really very cagey, encounter down there. 112 to 106, of course, in favor of Philadelphia 76ers. 3-2 now in favor of the New York Knicks, and of course, game 5 it is, and we're looking forward to see what comes up in the next encounter as well. This particular series has been very, very cagey. Can the New York Knicks, of course, go all the way as it stands? For me, I think they have what it takes, because you take a look at, their players, they've been living up to expectations, likes of Joe Hart. You talk about, Anu Bay as well. Jalen Brunson has been very fantastic. Put up about 40 points, in that encounter. That's a very, impressive performance, of course, you will see for Jalen Brunson. And with these players, of course, you see the New York Knicks, looking very strong, to challenge the Philadelphia 76ers in this particular series. And I think for what we've seen at this point in time, it's going to be a very, very cagey one. But for the Philadelphia 76ers, who are also looking very fantastic, especially in the last encounter, the likes of Toby, when both teams meet, and I think that will also be one of the decider in that particular series.
Well, still looking at actions there in the NBA, we saw one match in the early hours of this morning that was very, very thrilling. Just 1 point gap, 104 points to 103. Talking about Cleveland Cavaliers scoring 104 points as compared to the Orlando Magic's 103 points. Kingsley, this is tough, 2-2 between these two sides.
Yeah, a very tough one, as it is. And from what we've seen at this point in time, I think the Cavaliers are leading 3-2.
3-2, right?
Yes, the Cavaliers are leading 3-2. And it was a very cagey one, just 1 point difference, in that particular encounter. And I tell you, the guys, from the Cavaliers are not, letting any stone unturned at this point in time. We saw most of the players, of course, coming to the party, and the likes of Devin Mitchell, of course, came up with about 28 points, and there is Garrett coming up with 23 points. It was enough, of course, for the Cavaliers to be able to take up that victory against the Orlando Magic side, 3-2, in their favor. It was really an impressive encounter for the Milwaukee Bucks early as of today, as the likes of Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and Bobby Portis. These are players, of course, that came to the party as well for the Milwaukee Bucks side. And we look forward to see them, of course, coming up with an impressive performance, going forward. For the Indiana Pacers, they've also been very, very fantastic as well, leading this series 3-2. For me, I didn't actually see that coming against the Milwaukee Bucks side, who has actually been very, very impressive, when it has to do with the regular season. But it is what it is. At this stage of the competition, the mentality of teams actually grow. And that's what we're seeing from the Indiana Pacers side. We look forward to see how they'll be able to go down in Game 6.
Well, that will be it for this half of the program. Definitely we'll be back after a short break. We'll let you know how Africa's hope in tennis, female tennis, Onshobor, have crashed out of the Madrid Open. And it's not only her who has crashed out. We have some big names as well who had crashed out. Rafael Nadal is a very big name, especially when it comes to the Madrid Open. He too is out of the competition. Across the football, Real Madrid continue to show why they are the biggest team and, of course, the most winner of the UEFA Champions League. When we return from a break, we'll let you know how it ended 2-2 in Munich last night. Details of these and many more will be yours when we return from the break.
Telling him not to counterpunch. Killing him not the counter punch.
From the line.
Killing him not the counter punch.
Welcome back. It's Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. It's Mayday in the world today, and I'm sure you're enjoying what we're bringing to you. Latest happening around the world of sports. Kingsley, let's go to tennis now. And talking about tennis reminds me that the Madrid Open is the biggest event ongoing in the world of tennis. Big names have crashed out of the competition. Let's first of all start at the ATP, where the main Rafael Nadal, no doubt homeboy when it comes to the Madrid Open, most winner of the Madrid Open, but his body seemed to be saying otherwise, and he had to be beaten by a relatively unknown Lechetta. This one you really want to say is the end of Rafael Nadal and the Madrid Open. Jiri Lechetta, beating the 37-year-old Rafael Nadal, homeboy at the Madrid Open.
Yeah, very an emotional one. It ended 7-5, 6-4 in that particular encounter. We saw Lechka, of course, putting up a straight win against Rafael Nadal. Of course,
stretch a little bit, 2 hours, 30 minutes or thereabouts.
Yeah.
So the fans had something to cheer about.
Yeah, but for what we're saying, it was really emotional for Rafael Nadal, because after the game he was saying that, of course, he said this might be his last season, and he was very, very much emotional after that defeat yesterday. But I think
he's never going to come back to the Madrid Open court anymore. At least in terms of competition.
Yeah, and for what we've seen at this point in time, I think he was able to take consolation with the 3 victories. Of course, he was able to pull out this time around. It's been a very long time. We've seen him, coming up down to the courts like this and being able to rack up, 3 victories.
To stay on the court for nearly 2 hours plus.
And that's it, to tell you that at least he's been able to improve, health-wise, at this point in time. And we're looking forward to see what, comes up for him. The French Open as well is by the corner. And I think that may be another opportunity for him to see how he can actually put up something for himself. 14-time champion when it has to do with the French Open. I think that might be a morale booster for him to go into that particular one. Looking at the fact that, in the latest ATP tournaments he has played, he has not been able to put himself right. But losing to Lechka, I don't think that will be a disappointing one. But for the fact that this might possibly be his last, Madrid Open tournament, I think that's where the emotion comes in at this point in time. Maybe he actually wanted to have gone far than this, but from what we're seeing, I think for me, it's a good one that he's been able to play some games to make sure he's prepared, for the big one. Talking about the French Open and other Grand Slam, of course, that will be coming up for this. The man has done a lot, for himself, and I think for me, even though he called it a quit today, he will still be a legend when it has to do with tennis.
Rafael Nadal, no doubt, a legend.
And now, of course, he's here to defend his title. For me, I think Alcaraz, has what it takes, to be able to go far in this particular one, because since he came back, he's been very, very optimistic, taking out some opponents, on his way. And let's see how far, of course, he'll be able to go. And coming back from injury, we hope he'll be able to go all the way in defending this one.
Talking about defending the title at the Madrid Open, Carlos Alcaraz has won 14 times on the court there in Madrid, and it's consecutive streak. So we hope he will continue, but he has a very tough opponent in the quarterfinals. Andrei Rublev, the man from Russia, has what it takes to upset Carlos Alcaraz. Is this possible? We saw Rublev last night taking out Talon de Grespor from Holland, 6-2, 6-4.
For me, no 100%. I don't see Rublev, giving Alcaraz, tough time. Despite Alcaraz, of course, just came back, from injury. It's going to be a very tough one. I think Alcaraz is really, trying to bounce back, to his form. I'm not really seeing an upset, in that encounter, because for what we've seen so far, I think Alcaraz is looking very much optimistic, after not having a very good time so far this year. He has not been able, of course, to put up himself, in that limelight, so far. So for me, I don't see Rublev, of course, putting up that very huge challenge against Alcaraz.
Well, we saw Giannis Sinner, look like a man that could go far at this year's Madrid Open. He took out Karen Khachanov 7-5, 6-3, 6-3. Is this possible? Him seeing going far. He has Agua Lasime from Canada to contend with.
The series, as the inconsistency in Zverev is getting out of hand. The man is very, very inconsistent. How can you allow a player at that, of course, to take you until further? But yes, we know that upsets are bound to happen, but the rate at which it happened with Alexander Zverev, is not pardonable at all. The man, his inconsistency level has just really, increased, and I don't know what it is, because from what we're seeing at this point in time, we're not seeing, Zverev, of course, to be that player that could possibly challenge. For me, I think putting Zverev in that, category of a big player when it has to do with, the ATP, is not really something you can say with your full chest, or maybe give 100% of it, because the man has been inconsistent. When you expect him or to do his best, or when it matters most, you see him, falling behind. And this, at this point in time, is a very, very disappointing one for a player like Alexander Zverev.
Talking about disappointment at the Madrid Open that is ongoing in Spain, Kingsley, are you disappointed that Ons Jabeur, Africa's only hope in tennis when it comes?
Maybe, she's suffering from that, but for me, I don't think it's what she could actually rest her mind on. When it matters most, you don't see her, of course, coming up to expectation. I actually expected that game to be a very tough one against Maddie Case, because she's an experienced player, and taking out Coco Gauff, don't set up this time around at the competition. For me, I'm actually seeing this season to be a very tough one for Ons Jabeur, because for a game or else, it might be a very, very difficult season for her.
Well, talking about Madison Keys taking out Africa's best player in female tennis, Ons Jabeur from Tunisia. Kingsley, Madison Keys now has a lot of work to do. Iga Swiatek, world #1 in female tennis.
It's going to be a very tight one. It's going to be a very tight one. And experience, of course, you say with experience, Iga Swiatek, world #1, a very cagey encounter as it is, and I tell you, it's very difficult to
read. Open. I think that's the much we can take from tennis. Now, quickly, we'll go to football. And talking about football brings us to the round of 32 of the Nigerian football. That's the President's Cup. That's what it's called now, the Federation's Cup. Venue have been released, and dates for the women especially.
Yes, impressive one from what it says, talking about the level of organization. That Bayelsa Queens will battle against Bright Future Queens of Enugu at the Godswill Akpabi International Stadium in Uyo, and Rivers Angels will take on Ekiti Queens at the Stephen Keshi Stadium. For me, I think the venues, of course, are not bad. The venues, Godswill Akpabi, will be seeing the venue, another venue in Enugu, and another in Bayelsa as well. For me, I think the venues, of course, are very, very fantastic.
Rivers, they are playing in Asaba, right?
Yeah, they are playing, Rivers Angels, yes, they are playing in Asaba, yes, at the Stephen Keshi Stadium. And for me, I think the venue...
fixture between the home side, Bayelsa United against Rivers United. In the first match played on Monday, before there was heavy downpour, it was 1-0 in favor of Bayelsa United. Aftermath of rain, it was called off after 14 minutes, so it had to be played by 8 a.m. yesterday at the Samson Sassia Stadium. I was in that stadium, and of course, I did see Rivers United equalize, at the death of the first half. But what looks like a mix-up from the goalkeeper, Kande, showed that Bayelsa United, got their winning goal.
On that very day, Enyimba actually scored, a controversial goal. And of course, we saw, Doma United side, protesting. And it was a very, a strange one, where we saw the center referee running down to the OB van to go and watch the game on start. I think on the TV screen to see what really happened on that day. And due to the pressure from Enyimba fans, he actually gave them the goal. And the fans from Doma United were protesting all through, in that particular one. So it was really a controversial one.
The OB van turned to
VR.
Outside brokers, and the referees will learn how to interpret the rules. It's the decision of referees to, consult with the officials where there is this thing, there's a discrepancy.
Emmanuel Monique standing by Mother Airport, Finidi George, to make at this point in time, because these men are his close pally. They know him very well. So I think Finidi should be able to take sentiment out of this and pick the best, someone that could be able to help him, with the tactics, in order for him to be able to handle the team. Someone that will give him his all, in this particular one, because if he goes with sentiment, he might not get it. If he goes, oh, I know Amokachi, I know Amunike, or maybe Insane, this might not go well. He should be able to go with someone who has the tactics. And for me, I think Emmanuel Amunike, of course, will be a very good one for him, because I think both coaches are very good when it comes to penalty saving. And I think that's why I gave her that edge, to go past, other goalkeepers who are also nominated for this particular one. I think for me, Chiamaka Nnadozie has done well, for our staff. She's the best goalkeeper down here in Africa, and best now, of course, in the French league, in the women league. So for me, I think impressive performance going forward.
Well, congratulations to Chiamaka for emerging as the #1 goalkeeper in France. She plays for Paris SC out there in the French league. In our final story, it is difficult to separate home side Bayern Munich from Real Madrid in the semi-final, first leg semi-final of this year's UEFA Champions League. It ended 2-2 at the Allianz Arena last night. At the stage, it looks like Bayern Munich was going to wrap it, but 7 minutes to the end of the encounter, Vinicius Jr. had a penalty slotted into the far corner of the net, and I'm sure Emmanuel Neuer was surprised that that one went a different way from his own direction.
Vinicius Jr., of course, the man who came to the party for Real Madrid yesterday.
He scored 2 goals.
Scored 2 goals, and was very fantastic, of course, for the side, trying to see how they can put up a little bit defense and go on the counter, sometime. It was a very cagey encounter, and I think all will be decided at the Santiago Bernabeu down there in Spain. Can Bayern Munich, of course, be able to go there, and prove a point, for themselves? That will be the big question, to answer at this point in time. But for me, Carlo Ancelotti, I think, is also ready to put up another history for himself down there at Real Madrid. The players are also looking very optimistic, especially Jude Bellingham. Who also yesterday, yes, he didn't even have a very impressive performance yesterday. But I think the band, of course, will be ready to also.
Who got that penalty for the side?
Yeah, but for me, he will also be ready to see how he can actually put up something for himself, especially winning the UEFA Champions League, for Real Madrid.
The man on your screen there, Harry Kane, now has 36 goals. In fact, about nearly 43 goals overall this season, scoring about 9 goals in the UEFA
award this time around, because the man has done so far. Going down
highest goal scorer in the German Bundesliga.
Going down
35 goals.
Going down to Germany, and this is his first sighted.
Without the German Bundesliga title, where that's already been won.